Welcome to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. I'm Aaron Robbins with Intrinsic First. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes. Ready to dive into the world of leadership? Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. We have a guest today, Mr. Ken Garber, who is the owner and CEO of Delray Systems, a company that we've been working with, and we've known Ken now for a little while. So we're excited to have you on. To start off, as we typically do you mind giving us a little background about yourself and tell us what you do and where you come from?
Very good. Yeah, I'm from a little town, Redding, California, way up north. And I decided to join the Navy when I was in college.
No, he's further north. He's closer to Oregon, if I remember.
Because Jimmy's from north in California.
Oh, very good. Yeah, so he knows the small towns are like. I went to the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California. And I was an engineering student. And I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted like Top Gun. And so there was a recruiter on base. And I went to see him. I said, I want to be a pilot. And he said, great. I'm not that guy. I'll take you on a tour, a submarine, and then I'll introduce you to the pilot recruiter. So I never met that guy. And I signed up, took my bonus, and I joined the Navy. So I was a submarine guy.
Yeah.
And I did that active duty for 9 years. Ooh. And then I went off and joined the industry, working for defense companies here in San Diego. And I got involved with more and more running the projects, wanting to lead them, be in charge. And so I just moved up, several different companies, learned a lot of different skill, and decided I wanted to have my own company. So I bought Delray Systems. That was 2 years ago. And so that's kind of how I got to where I am.
Very cool. So what was it? I'm curious. We'll go way back to the beginning there. What was it about the submarine visit that had you not going back to the flight side?
So I was a poor kid from a little town in Redding, California. And I went on this really cool tour up in Bangor, Washington. Went to the submarine base, brand new. In the forest, brand new submarine. Yeah. Everybody loved life. And they were so excited, and they said, this is the best career in the world. And so I said, okay, I'll do this. And I signed up, got my $10,000, paid off 4 years of college, and then I got assigned to a submarine that was in Pearl Harbor. And that's great, right?
Yeah.
But then my submarine immediately went to overhaul. Was getting torn apart for 2 years.
Never saw the water.
It was the worst experience in the Navy I ever had. In terms of the job. But then I did get to come to San Diego and ride a submarine by the best CEO in the world. Learned so much. And he was like John Wayne. And I got really excited about the Navy. And so then I stayed in.
What year were you in UOP?
UOP from like 79 to 84.
Okay, yeah, that's where I grew up in Stockton, actually.
Stockton. Oh, great town.
Yeah, so. I haven't been back.
You have mixed feelings?
I do. I joined right out of high school. I haven't been back. So my sister still lives there. So no, I know UOP very well. So you went to shipyards for a couple. Yeah, that first tour was a shipyard tour, basically for probably 2-3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it was 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's tough. A lot of people don't know that, but like the shipyard's a lot harder than actually getting underway.
It's terrible because you have the naval reactor people there looking over your shoulder. Mm-hmm. Anything that goes wrong is a big deal.
Yeah,
and so it's not very fun.
I was a supply officer on the USS Ohio going through SSGN conversion. So that was 2.5 years in the shipyards up in Bremerton.
Grinding and welding and everything in your way and people bumping into each other.
Yeah.
Is it like a ship of AL2? They've got vents and tubes going through everywhere. Yes.
So the hatches that are normally this big are like this big. And,
right.
And we had asbestos and we had to wear spacesuits and it was a lot of fun.
Oh man, that's tough.
But you didn't get to go to space.
No.
Just had to wear the spacesuit.
I did apply for the astronaut program.
Oh yeah.
Well, how did that application process go for you then?
Well, it didn't work out, but I was pretty excited about the opportunity. But they wanted those pilot guys. So if I would have become a pilot, I would have been an astronaut.
You got duped.
Well, how far did you get in the whole process? Was that like a...
Oh, I just submitted an application, never heard back.
And they said, thanks.
Thank you for submitting your application.
If they said that at all.
Thank you very much.
Drop your application in that basket right there.
The non-pilot basket.
Hey, Ken, so you mentioned you had a really great CO when you came down to San Diego. What was it about that individual that, what was so great about him and his experience or his leadership style? Just curious.
So as a contrast, what they do in the Navy, when you're going to overhaul, they pick the commanding officer, the XO, and the engineer to be suited for that. So they have expertise in engineering and managing projects. It's a lot of management, but not a lot of leadership. And so when I got to the submarine down here, you got John Wayne running your submarine. That's a leader, right? That guy knows how to take a crew out there into harm's way, get us excited about it, and do things you never talk about.
So let's talk about those things.
All right, Pilgrim, back up against the sink.
But the difference was when we got out there, he trusted me because he had taught me what he wanted me to know. And when I got qualified, he gave me the keys of the ship. It's yours. And I was driving the submarine in a very tense environment on day one.
Wow. Yeah. So you had this level of trust with him. He was probably, serious, right? He had high expectations, it sounds like, but if you did what you needed to do, there was trust there and it was a good relationship.
Right. And so when I came onto that submarine, he brought me into his stateroom and says, it's going to be hard. You're coming from a 637 class submarine, which is an older one, to a Los Angeles class. You're going to have to learn all the systems again. That's going to be job one. And then you're going to have to prove to me that I can trust you with a submarine. I took on that challenge, knowing that if I did what he asked me to do, I was going to be able to drive that submarine. And that was my vision the whole time.
Nice. So it's setting expectations right up front. You knew what you needed to do, and then you could do it.
Did you have any fear of like failing it during that, any part of that tour, or did you feel like you were supported the entire time?
Well, I was supported for sure. I was given this really experienced A-ganger. So he was with me every night on the midnight shift, and we would go around and go through all the systems, crawl under the floorboards, into the walls, into the tanks. He showed me everything. I knew everything better than probably anybody on that boat, and I aced that exam. When we got back to port, that same guy got arrested by the FBI and NCIS for some murders that happened before we left port.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was with this guy. He had a big old buck knife, and we went around the boat. And I was with him alone in the middle of the night.
He must have liked you since he kept you alive.
I'm glad I made it.
No, that's interesting. You meet all kinds of weird people or different people in the military, but
he was an expert. He knew his stuff.
That's right. That's awesome.
How long were you with this leader that you were talking about now?
Not long enough. I was on this boat for about a year, and it was down here in San Diego. And I can remember coming into port one day. There were dolphins jumping over the bow wave, and I said, you know what? I'm going to live in San Diego someday. It was this beautiful city, dolphins jumping over the bow wave of the submarine. It was just a calling. And so after that year was over, I went back to Mare Island to finish our tour up there with the overhaul, get the boat out of overhaul, and then I immediately came back to San Diego for a shore duty at what used to be called Naval Ocean Systems Center, which is now Naval Information Warfare Center Pacific.
NOSC to SSC to San Diego to PAC.
All those names. NRAD, they had all kinds of names.
NRAD. Yeah, that was the original, I think. Was it NRAD before NOSC, or was it?
Actually, NRAD stands for No, NOS stands for the Naval Ocean Systems Center. One of them had the embedded acronym in there. So they kind of overlap.
Yeah, the government likes to embed acronyms.
Yeah, and there's also Naval X. They had a lot of names.
Yeah.
So how long, when you left the Navy and then you started working in defense, how long was it until you realized you wanted to run your own company?
Well, probably about 5 minutes, but it took me about 20 years to actually do it. I was inspired when I got out of the Navy. So I was working at the lab, and I was working on great projects. I was doing anti-submarine warfare projects in England and France, and we had just joint programs, and I learned all kinds of stuff that was going on around the world for anti-submarine warfare. And the person that was leading us was a guy named Shelby Sullivan. He was a really experienced sonar tech, and then became a scientist there at the Naval Ocean Systems Center. And when I came there on day one, he said, "Oh, you're a submarine guy. What boat were you on?" And I said, "Oh, I was on the Aspro." He goes, "Oh, yeah, I remember that one. I saw you guys on February 22nd up there in this part of the ocean." I said, "No, you didn't." He goes, yes, I did." He pulled out these SOSUS arrays. He said, "Here, you guys are right here." And so he inspired me that there's something there that in the whole anti-submarine warfare world that could be progressed to the using all the high-powered processors that are coming out at the time. And so we had scientists there that were bringing all those systems to fruition, and one of them came from industry. That was a gentleman named Dale Klamer, and he became my first mentor in the civilian world. He was a PhD from Caltech, super smart, but he was able to take his smarts and communicate that and inspire people to what could be done. And so when I left the Navy, the active duty part anyway, I went to work for Oricon, the company that he was at that time. Oricon subsequently got bought by Lockheed Martin. But he was the first one that really got the bug in me that I wanted to go out there and work in the civilian world, using all these things I had learned in the Navy. But I was also glad at the same time I stayed in the reserves and stayed connected with the submarine force. And that kept me current with what was going on in this submarine world.
Nice. How many years was it before, from the time you got out of the Navy to the time that you were you bought Delray?
It's now like 30 some odd years.
Oh, okay. So throughout all that time where you were moving up into different roles and taking on management positions and I assume leading projects and contracts,
right?
What would you say were some of the key or most important skills that you learned along the way that have kind of shaped and allowed you to be successful in terms of, taking on more leadership roles and ultimately being able to take on this owning a company?
Well, I would step back a little bit back to one of my Navy experiences where when you're brand new on a submarine, you're given a division. So here I'm little Ensign Garber. I know nothing, right? And I'm charged of these salty, chiefs and E6s that have been working in these submarines for a long time. And it's my job to lead them. And in overhaul, there's a lot of tests where they tear things apart, they put them back together, you have to test them out, all kinds of very specific steps you have to go through and understand the contingency operations in case something goes wrong. And so the officer has to go there and brief the crew on what we're going to do that day. And obviously they know 10 times more than us ensigns that just got on board. And so I would go up there and I would do my brief and they go, yeah. And then when I got done talking, the chief would start saying, "Okay, here's what we're going to do." And that was very insulting and kind of showed that I wasn't really leading at that point. And so I asked my chief, how can we change this? And he says, "Well, Ken, you need to know the stuff better than I do." And I said, "Okay." So the next time I was going to brief, I went to my engineering officer and I said, "I need to know the stuff better. And I want to learn it." He goes, "Okay, I'll tell you what, the reactor's shut down right now. It's cooled down. We can go inside the actual reactor room." And so I got to go in that area, got toured around, showed the different kinds of metal that are used, where the actual sensors connect to the reactor, where the water goes, what it looks like, why this thing is this big, and all this kind of stuff. And when I gave the next brief, I didn't ask them to show me how it worked. I explained to them better than they knew how that thing worked and why we were testing it and what the things could go wrong and how we're going to deal with that. And there was no after brief that day. And from that point on, that's the way I always did my things. I knew the stuff as good or better than they did. And that got their respect. And that was the first thing I learned. That to be a good leader, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to have the expertise to actually lead them and inspire them and get their trust that you know what you're talking about.
My timing might be off a little bit. Did you have to interview with Admiral Rickover?
Just after that, I had Admiral McKee.
McKee, okay. Yeah. Rickover had those famous interviews we all hear about. I was a nuke. I was an enlisted nuke, so we hear about those stories all the time.
Yeah, it was a little different. I didn't get the chair with the shorter legs in the front or any of that kind of stuff. Right.
One of those. That's just a joke.
So Rickover would have these infamous interview process where he'd interview every officer before they allows them into the nuclear program. And yeah, the one that Ken just mentioned, where he would purposely like cut off, like make one leg shorter on the chair and have you sit in it and see how you would handle the being uncomfortable. or he'd make you wait.
Rickover?
Yeah, I'm on Rickover. Or he make you sit there for like 45 minutes to an hour just in an empty office waiting for him to come in and talk to you.
Or make you wait in a closet. He did all kinds of weird stuff.
Just to see how you would handle adversity.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, mine was very straightforward. I just walked in and Admiral McKee said, "Why do you want to be in my Navy?"
Why do you want to be in my Navy?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
He must have had a good answer.
That was good enough. I don't remember what I said. I don't know. I wanted to be on a submarine. It was good.
Looks cool.
Yeah. I wanted to be a pilot,
Yeah.
but here I am.
All right. So then we fast forward all the way up. You're now, you've been leading teams and leading projects. And can you tell us, to whatever level you can tell us, about what kind of led to being able to purchase this organization, and, what kind of things did you do to prep, and how that all kind of come about?
Like I was saying, I got the bug early that I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be in charge. But it took a while to get that actual skill base up so that I could actually do it and find an opportunity. So I went to business school. I got my MBA at UCLA, and I thought that would help me. But I came back and realized I was kind of out of touch with what was going on down here at NAVWAR, because I had been working for some private companies doing digital communication kind of stuff. And so I came back into this market, and I had to work for some companies, go back down and work PMW 160 and 770 just to kind of get my credibility back up and be part of the market. And then with my mentor, Mr. Dwayne Junker, who I think is everybody's mentor, but he knew that I was working down this path of wanting to own a company. And in his circles, he knew of Delray Systems, and Mr. Jim Miller, who I ended up buying the company from, was looking to exit out of Delray. And was looking for somebody that he could trust to take the company in the direction that he had set forward, with a high integrity of work and good relationship with our employees, taking care of them. And so Jim didn't know me. He said, "Okay, why don't you come over? You can work with me a couple of years doing business development, and if I like you and you like me, then we can go ahead and seal this deal." That's basically what happened. I came in and evaluated what I saw in the company, where some of the things we needed to improve were, and I jumped on those. And those were primarily just getting re-engaged as a company back into the marketplace in terms of being on teams and interacting with the other primes and other companies, and being really aware of what the opportunities were. Because Jim was very good at the work they had done and very solid, and kept re-winning their work. And he was not really interested in growing anymore. But the problem with that is some of your contracts start to get old and they start to go away. So I saw that happening. So I wanted to get us ahead of that and get really involved with new contracts. So I spent the first 2 years doing that, work on marketing, getting very involved with NDIA and AFCEA and the conferences and now the NAVWAR Contracts Industry Council, just really being engaged so that people know who Delray is and that they look at us as somebody that could be a prime or a sub on contracts. So I did that for a couple of years. He saw that I was worth investing in and helping me in the transition to buying the company, because it really did take his help to make that transition happen.
How many people were at Delray when you first started working there, I guess?
It was about 55, and now we're up to about 70.
Okay.
What would you say were some of those key aspects, or were there any kind of milestones through that whole process that really kind of stand out for you?
Well, I would say that the biggest issue that I faced when I was getting into the idea, okay, now he's agreed that I might be a good person to buy the company, and I wanted to buy the company, was, well, for how much? And that whole it's very emotional when you're selling this company that you've built from nothing up to about a $10 million company. You've been doing this for 28 years at that point, and you think it's worth a nice pretty penny because you know the value, you know the quality of the people you have, the relationships, the work, everything is taken to get to there, and so you have a value in mind. But it was half of it was a employee stock ownership company, so there were annual valuations happening, so that was something to base it on. But then when I went to buy it, we had to update all those and come up with a good value, and we did. And then you get lawyers involved, and those cost money. So very quickly, the process got expensive. Then there's a need to actually have some money to put down so that you have some skin in the game. Right. And so I had to come up with a way to do that. And so I had to go to some friends and family and say, hey, who wants to help Ken buy a company? And so I was able to get some help there. And then I had to find a way to pay for the rest. And what we ended
so I
up
got a
doing
question.
was,
Generally
sure.
speaking, because we've talked to other business owners, I'm just kind of curious. When you're evaluating a defense contracting company, it's based on the prime work, not so much the sub. Is that correct?
I don't think that's exactly true. I mean, obviously, there's more value in prime work because you do have the ultimate say-so as far as what work you're going to get on that contract. When you're sub, obviously, you're a little bit at risk that the prime could change that balance of work, and it could be in your disfavor. But ultimately, the track record of the company, revenue, profitability is what it gets based on.
Okay.
And other companies like you. Well, one thing that I was very surprised about, that a large percentage of the valuation was based on similar companies. And it's just like buying a house. When you're buying a house in a neighborhood, they're looking at all the comparables in the neighborhood, right? So the same kind of thing with companies. They're looking around at that, saying, okay, we've sold other companies for this much, and it was agreed upon as being reasonable. So this might be the starting point for Delray.
We're a long way away from that, but it's always a conversation. I went to USC, by the way, for my MBA, and so
that's okay. They're good.
No, it's perfectly. I'm actually really happy with that decision.
What did he say?
He said it's okay. But that school is known for entrepreneurship, and so any business decision that comes your way, from an entrepreneurial perspective, there's always a discussion about the exit strategy, which is always, when do you want to get in it and what's the barriers to entry and all that. But then they always want you to consider what an exit strategy looks like, which we haven't really done that on our end because we're just getting going. And so that.
Yeah, so that's good. That's a good point. There's a couple of things. When I got involved with this, I wanted to have a board. And so I have a board. And the buy-in for the board, they say, yeah, we'll be on your board if you do a couple of things. One is we want to see your strategic plan. And we want to know what your exit strategy is. And so that forced me to think through all those kind of things. And that's important because that affects all the decisions you're making and how you're investing your resources.
So why the board? That's an interesting thought for me. Why did you want to have a board?
Well, right now we're an S Corp, and I don't really need to have one. But when I go forward with my actual strategy, I might be going to a C Corp so I can have more owners. Because you're kind of limited on the number of owners you can have under S Corp. So I want to be able to have stock incentives for my employees. I bought out the ESOP, so I own 100% of the company now, so that I can use some of those stock shares to incentivize key employees, and that will drive me towards a C Corp. Also, if I get too big, I want to do that.
So what I hear you saying is you wanted the board in preparations for growth.
Correct, and to help me grow, right? There are a lot of I didn't just pick people willy-nilly. There are people that will actually help me stay focused and teach me things that I don't know, but also to help me grow into markets that we're not in.
How'd that go over with the team, with the employees when you bought out the ESOP? Was that a big aspect for the employees that had them kind of feeling the culture? And did you, were there certain things you did to make sure that didn't negatively impact the perceptions?
Yeah, that was had a very emotional level to that one as well, because we realized that part of the selling point to work at Delray was that it was an ESOP company. So there was a selling point to come work here. If you looked at all our emails and our website, we stressed that a lot. But in reality, after doing a lot of analysis on that, it's a very stagnant structure. There was not many stocks becoming available to new employees. So new employees weren't getting very many stocks, and their valuation was not going up at this point. And so it was going to take a long time for them to actually get their money. Who knows if the company was going to be around, 20 years from now when they're going to get their money. Yeah. So I use those kind of factors on how I propose this to the company. And I really did have an open discussion at that point. I explained to everybody that if we go forward with this ESOP buyout, I'm going to give you money right now, right? And you know you're going to get it. Everybody's going to do that. And then in the future, we'll be able to have profit sharing and all kinds of other things that will be more advantageous to you based on how the company's doing and your contribution. So we did. That was the way I went into it. It got even better when we got to the real process of doing it, because we had this valuation based on the ESOP, and we were working with lawyers, and they were saying, that's great, but that's not a ESOP buyout evaluation. You need to do one of those. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you buy the company based on this price, and all of a sudden the value of the company just skyrockets next year, you're going to have lawsuits because somehow Ken knew something and he's taking advantage of these employees. And now you have an IRS approved retirement plan, which is the ESOP is, and they care, right? And so they said, okay, now what you need to do is have a ESOP valuation, which will have margins added to that based on your forecasts and other companies like you that have gone through this process. You're going to pay a premium. So it got it better for the employees, because not only was I paying them money now, I was paying them more money than the company was worth.
Yeah. So you got to make sure you're not too successful in the first couple of years after you buy out an ESOP, so you don't get sued.
Or you get a good evaluation done so that you cover yourself. Right. And then you work with. I always have good legal advice when you're doing that, because I learned a lot. I went to UCLA, that other school. I got my MBA, but okay. I learned a lot more through going through this process of buying a company than I learned in the whole MBA. I really did.
Yeah, I mean those going to business school just sets the foundation, right? And then you start to
theoretical
learn.
Side, really, isn't it?
No, it could be actual, experience, but it's other people's experience. But when you actually get into it, you really start to learn. I mean, you didn't learn HR until you actually started doing HR.
Well, sure. I mean, and there's plenty of books. It's like you can't ever be prepared to be a CEO.
Right.
It's different for every person, and you can only learn it by doing it.
Yeah.
So what else you got going on with the organization? So you own it. You got the ESOP. You've been obviously doing other stuff other than business development, although I know you're still very active in the business development side. But, what's it been like running a company? Is it everything you hoped it would be? Is there, good things or challenging things?
All of the above. It's been the most fun I've ever had in business, because I've always wanted to do this. So I had a lot of ideas on how to run a company and make it the company I was proud of. And I was starting with a great basis. Delray's been around for, at that point, 28 years. Great reputation for doing good work, take care of their people. But I want to come in and kind of remarket that, rebrand it. So we've updated all our marketing and our material and retooled the staff. So I brought in a very smart marketing person, Stacy Nikos. She's brilliant. She's a PhD, came from academia, but she's very quick to take that communication knowledge that she has as a writer and educator and learn all about our industry. And now she has dissected how to do all the forecasting, how to write proposals, how to get all the technical material together and to run this team. And I thought, I know how to do this stuff. I'll teach her. But by this time, by bringing in somebody smarter than me, I realized that there's other ways to do things. And now they're being done even better than I could have imagined. So I brought her in to do that. I also have a new contracts person, because that was something that was missing for us. We were kind of doing that out of Hyde, but now we have a dedicated contract person who's an expert in that.
Yeah.
And then also I've been working on part of our image is we're service disabled veteran-owned small business. I'm a veteran, a disabled veteran, and so I want to make it clear to anybody that looks at Delray that we support veterans, that we take that seriously. And so we've been working very hard in all the veteran organizations. I was one of the founders, support the Enlisted Project. I work for the STMAC Foundation. I'm on their board, and our whole thing is about having veterans coming out of the military get employment here in San Diego. I introduced the transitioning veterans at the STMAC breakfast. I just want that to be our image. But more than our image, I want to walk the walk, and so walk the talk. And so I've been hiring veterans through the SkillBridge program. So we're on our third one right now, and that's been the best thing that I've ever done as far as finding great talent with people that are really motivated, and I just can't believe how bought in they are. They really, really want Delray to be successful, and so that just brought youth and excitement to the company, and woken me up to social media, AI type of things. And so we're incorporating all those into how we do business. If you look at our website now, and we're actually doing the LinkedIn, we're doing the Instagram. It's kind of fun to see. So we're really becoming a younger, more energized.
No, that's good. There's there's a lot to unpack there, but I agree with you. I think that a big piece of leadership isn't so much about what you contribute, but surrounding yourself with great people, right?
Exactly.
Right. And enabling them. This is more technical, but that SkillBridge program I've heard is very challenging to get administratively approved for. Did that take a while?
Yeah, so I probably would never have done it because it sounded good, but like you say, it was hard, and it's a morass of websites that don't work and different guidance from the different parts of DoD. They all have different rules.
Yeah. Stacy
came in and she figured it all out. The hardest part about that is that you have to have an approved curriculum. You have to put together a training plan. It has to be approved. Mm-hmm. And that just takes somebody that understands how to write academia stuff. And so she does. And so through that, we've broken the code as far as getting first established as a company, which you have to do, and then each billet has to be approved with a training plan, a curriculum. Yeah. To make it even more complicated, they're changing it right now. They're redoing the whole program.
Great.
And I think it's overdue because, like anything else, people want to make a quick buck. And if you look at the whole SkillBridge employer side of it, it's just rife with people scamming our veterans, trying to come up with ways to make them pay to come and be a realtor, so they have to pay for their licensing stuff, and they don't really get anything. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate that it came to that. So they're cleaning out all the things like that by having some harder curriculum harder process to get approved. And also you have to have a track record of hiring people and actually giving them intern skills. They can't just work virtually. They need to come to the office. And that's all great. And we do all that. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And the SkillBridge, so Drea, first, SkillBridge is a program where you can bring military people, employees that are getting out soon, and give them a job, and the military actually pays for it. So it's essentially free labor for the company, and it's kind of a win-win. You get help support, they get experience on the job, so that when they get out, they're much more prepared.
Right.
Are you doing that in the back office side, or are you putting them billable?
So that's a good question. You cannot put them billable.
Got it.
Because if you do that, they're double dipping, right? The government's paying them, and then the government's paying for them again. So that's not good.
And you can't put them on contract because then the government would be accepting free labor technically, even though in a roundabout way it's being paid for.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're here in the office, but they're learning. The first person came in to be a finance person, and I hired him full time now. But the second one is doing program management. Okay. And so he's going through PMP. We're sending him through a Crane, Indiana program management school. Nice. He's working on our processes, but he's actually helping us codify how we do program management. So his kind of term paper at the end is basically going to be the Delray program management process. The third gentleman that came in, he is working on our business development. So he's supporting Stacy, and he's job is to do the same thing for our entire business capture to actually starting a contract. What's our process for Del Rey? Where are the files? Who do you talk to? What are the steps we go through? And it's going to help us be more repeatable and efficient.
How many people are we talking about in your organization?
Well, entire organization, about 70, 75, depending if you're counting 1099s. But here in our office, we have 6 full-time in headquarters. I have 1 part-time in headquarters, and now I have the 3 interns.
So 70 total, and they're spread out over what geographic area?
Yeah, so we're headquartered here in San Diego. Our customers here are Niwit Pack, Navor, and a lot of people over on North Island doing stuff for ComNav AirPack. We have an office in Charleston where we support Niwit Land doing common submarine radio room work there. In Norfolk, we have people doing training on weapons systems. Actually, half the group is there, and half the group is out in North Island here. And then we have also, all spread around the country, we support the Naval Aviation Enterprise. So we have these very experienced, salty chiefs that come out of their part of the Navy on the readiness. So they're very good on keeping the crew pipeline or the whole staffing of the people that repair the planes, as well as the training, and then also the parts and whatever it takes to keep the aircraft flying. And their whole job is to help the air boss with readiness. And so they're all around the country. Everywhere there's an airfield, there's one of these people out there.
So you're really spread out. And how do you keep everybody sort of in tune with the things that you are trying to do versus your successes and failures?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question, because one of the biggest challenges I saw was, how do I make this Del Rey, right? People work for Del Rey, and when they're out there, they're working for Del Rey. Because many times when we're a subcontractor, they see the prime contractor every day. They don't see me there, right? And so who do they work for? They start to think, maybe I work for this other company, or maybe I work for the Navy.
Prime. Yeah.
Or the prime,
government.
right?
The government, yeah.
Or the government, exactly. So worked very hard to work on that community and doing a couple of things. One is we switched to using a kind of a off-the-shelf payroll system to use Paylocity. And built into Paylocity is this whole community part. So now we're recognizing people. There's all communication, chat boards going on there, and really constant, what initiatives that are happening with Del Rey, our new policies, training. It's all on this one site. So they need to come there, and then to do their training and to get their payroll done, and that makes them see other things that are happening in the company. So that helped.
Nice.
But also in our staff meetings, we track our interactions with our employees, because what gets measured gets done, right? And so we measure that, and so that's so important, because otherwise they are just lost souls out there. I have onesie twosies all around the country, and they could become loose cannons and just independent contractors really fast.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you have a tremendous amount of autonomy, personal autonomy. Nice, and not you, but the people that work at your place.
Yes. Yeah, good or bad, that's true, right? Yeah.
Plug into some form of accountability, and I don't like that word, but you're somehow expressing how they're doing. How do they where do they get their data about how I'm doing?
So that's good. So we've instituted a couple of things. One is where we are a prime, we're using a software tool to track all the deliverables and do quality management and to manage the actual conduct of the contract. When we're a sub, then we do another system where we're pulling that information and giving them feedback as well. But it's not as formal. We are working really hard to get that kind of feedback loop going, and that's part of the program management part that one of our interns is working on right now. The other thing that was missing when I came on board, because this was a small company and everybody knew everybody, there were no annual reviews, no performance reviews. And so I've instituted that. And I thought that was going to be hard. I thought everybody was going to say, oh, I don't want to do that.
Right.
It was the exact opposite. Everybody was like, finally, somebody is paying attention. And I have a career advancement feedback, and I have a plan, and this is all demonstrates to them that we care about what they're doing. Mm-hmm. We're recognizing their progression, and we're trying to move them forward in their careers. And it had the exact opposite effect that I was worried about, and that's helped a lot.
That's good. As long as it's meaningful, right? The problem, I think, comes in is when you have leaders that start saying, all right, write your own review and I'll sign off, let's just check the box. But if it's value added, I mean, people want to know how they're doing. They want to know what their opportunities are for growth. Just like you knew you wanted to be into a leadership role and eventually run a company. And I mean, people want those types of things. I don't know if everybody wants to run a company, or maybe a lot of people think they want to run a company, but they don't. They don't actually want to run a company. It's stressful. There's a lot of
be careful
BS.
what you ask for. Yeah, you don't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah, but
with that, I kind of forgot that we had done this whole thing. Is we went through a lot of work when I got my new contracts gentleman on board to go through and define all our labor categories. Because many times we were just using what the government told us. But now we have corporate labor categories, job requirements, education requirements, and we have different levels. And so when we do these reviews, they're tied in with that. So we can say, you're at this labor category. You want to be more senior. Here's what you need to do, right? And so now we can give them that path.
Right.
And they know what to work on.
Yeah, the career planning. We did a bunch of that at CSA. It was a huge amount of work. And I'm sure I could have paid someone to come in, and they had already probably done it before. We were recreating the wheel a little bit, but it was huge, right? People being able to see, oh, so now I'm in this position. This is my role, and here's the next step, or even here's a couple of different options. And if I do want to go into this, here's the kind of things I need to know. I have experience I need. I have, skills that I need. There's maybe education even that I need to have. So that's really good. Kind of spin it a little bit, because I know you're super active in all the organizations. And you mentioned that one of the things you were doing, especially when you first came in, was the marketing stuff. I've been more recently doing a lot of marketing and branding and learning the commercial side of it, which is very different than government. And from my experience in the organizations I worked with on the government contractor side, I mean, marketing is like branding and marketing is not as big of a thing. It's not like you need to, you're going to contract officers and having lots of meetings and trying to convince them to know you and all that stuff. There's an aspect of that in the government and capture and all that. But I'm just curious, what's your perspective on, what is marketing, or what's the role of marketing in a defense contractor company? And how are you doing that? Both in terms of, my assumption is there's an aspect of it for your customer, but also for the internal employees, and almost like a recruiting aspect.
I'll focus mostly on the outside part, because I have a lot of thoughts there. We wanted to get really into the conferences and have a booth there, and realized pretty quickly that you have to have a defined reason, some kind of payoff that you foresee happening before you're going to invest in having a booth at a trade show. And so that's been one of the things that we've learned, that more times than not, that's not necessary. Sponsoring a conference, just getting your name out there. But having your name out there is important, because in all these markets that we go to, up in Keyport, Washington, or Crane, Indiana, or Charleston, right? They don't want to perceive you as an outsider. You really need to be somebody that invested some time to be there on the ground, talking to them. And the more times they see Del Rey Systems and they see our logo, the better, because they subconsciously start to register, yeah, Del Rey is one of us.
Yeah.
So that's been part of it. But really, the hardest branding thing that I've had to work on is, what is our image to the large primes? So when I go to Booz Allen or SAIC or to any of the big companies that I could want to prime something, what's the added value of Del Rey to them? And it's easy to say, yeah, we're service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, but okay, there's 20 of those here, right? And so we put a lot of work into learning how to articulate that. And first we had to figure out what are we trying to say. So we went out to all these great talented people we have working for our company and said, what's special about us? What's special about you? What do we do? And quantifying the payoffs, the benefits of the work that we've done. And so now we're better able, we're not 100% there, but we're working really hard on capturing all that data, and so that we have it at our fingertips and it becomes part of what we articulate in our interactions with other companies.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on right now.
Nice. Yeah, so that's true. So the marketing aspect is almost more important for the team members and being known as a player within the industry, because it's so much about teaming on proposals. It sounds like more so even than being known in the government space.
There are levels and steps that you, as you grow, that you have to pass, so to speak, as I understand it. So to be a prime, you have to do X and Y, and you have to work at that outcome. Is that true? I mean,
it depends on the prime. I mean, yes, for bigger prime contracts, you certainly have to have past performance. And,
yes.
But like Ken said, I think a lot of it is having the right company behind you. So, we've seen some very small companies that had no prime contracts, and they got, Booz Allen or somebody propped them up as a subcontractor, and they won a massive, $100 million plus contract. Just boom, going from 15 people to, well over 100, overnight.
So I never considered that before, but you make a very, very good point as far as it's the marketing and branding is not just for clients, but it's for potential team members as well.
That's
as team
right.
Partners.
Right.
Yeah, so when Booz Allen or Deloitte or SAIC's thinking about going after something, you want them to think about you, right? So they say, who has this capability that we trust, that has all the right things? Because there are some tickets you have to have. You have to have a facility clearance, you have to have an approved accounting system, and now you have to have CMMC certifications, and we've invested a lot of money in that, by the way, too. Yeah. So there are things that the big companies are looking for, and you want Del Rey, in my case, to come to mind when they're brainstorming on who should be a prime. Yeah,
that's true, because it's for those large companies. What about, so you're super active in NDIA, in particular AFCEA. We got Gold Coast coming up. I know you got meetings and things planning and being a big player in that. I think for a business owner, for a senior leader, especially for business development leads, it's an obvious value or, participation in that to, know the other business development people and planning, teaming and all that. What about for, your average project manager, middle management leader? What do you see the value of because you're super active in those organizations? What's the value to the, to the day-to-day on the deck plate leaders for being participating, or to what extent do you recommend that they participate in those types of organizations?
Well, if anybody's got the bug and wants to be like a real leader or manage a big project or run a company, it's important that they start to go to these conferences or participate in this kind of industry organizations, because then you hear the language, you hear what's happening, you become engaged with what the mood of the industry is, or what the initiatives are, and so that you're speaking the right language and you know who the players are. So I think there's a lot of value. One thing I'm trying to do here at Del Rey is take our management kind of level, inspire them to be leaders at every level. So instead of just managing a task and checking off boxes, learn how to inspire people and get to a goal. And part of knowing that is, what is the goal? And so the more engaged they are, they know what the industry is trying to do, what the government's trying to do, what our Department of Defense is trying to do, what their challenges are. The more you're aware of that, the more you can rise to that level of being a leader, because you know what to say, you know what is important and how you can get people inspired, because what's being talked about there really matters. And so then you have that information to become a leader.
That's good. So as we kind of wrap up, before we jump into our fun joke time, is there anything else that you'd like to throw out? Any questions you wish I'd have had asked, or anything you'd like to tell the general public about Del Rey or about the work that you're doing or any of the organizations you work with?
Of course, all those organizations have been very valuable to me. NDIA, I'm on the local board, I'm on the national board. One thing that we start here in San Diego is the NAVWAR Contracts Industry Council. I encourage everybody to be aware of this and use this mechanism to get your questions answered. If you have something that's important to you, that you want to know, why is the Navy doing this, or how can we change something, this is the avenue to do it. We have a very focused group that meets with the senior leadership at NAVWAR, and now what's called One NAVWAR, which includes all the PEOs. So you have this direct communication, two-way communication, and Mr. Gunter, who's O2 there at NAVWAR, he's very committed to active engagement where he can make a change. He doesn't want to just have a dialogue. He wants to make changes and make things better. So this is a chance to do that. And so I encourage everybody to participate and use the CIC as a mechanism. And then we've also switched now from having monthly meetings for AFCEA and NDIA and WID, where we get the NAVWAR people to come and talk to us for a luncheon or whatever, to having quarterly events, similarly to what they do out in Charleston. And the quarterly events are called the Quarterly Business Opportunities Brief, or QBOB. And we had our first one last month, and we'll have the next one in February. And so that's another opportunity where we're going to have more focus, a lot more energy to come and hear about the opportunities and the initiatives that the government is going through.
For the CIC, how do you find the CIC? Is there a website, or how do you get in touch?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We have a CIC email address. I could get that to you after the meeting, where you can submit your questions or topics. The architecture is intended to be that we have representatives from SDMAC, the San Diego Military Advisory Committee. We have representatives from NDIA, from AFCEA, and Women in Defense. And there's a representative in each one of those organizations from a large company and from a small company. So they're on the council. They serve a 2-year term there. And when we have our meetings, we have discussions, we capture everything in minutes. Those minutes go out to those organizations, and they are directed then to disseminate all the information to their members. And that's how you could hear what's happening. You could either submit questions through your representatives in those organizations, or you can submit them to the email address that I'll provide later.
Very cool. I mean, there's a lot more avenues right now for small businesses, and I think what you guys are doing is just fantastic. The transparency and communication flow is way better than it was, 2-3 years ago, I would say. So
yeah,
great.
I agree.
Thanks for all that work that you guys are doing.
And the pendulum swinging towards small business set aside.
It really is. Yeah.
Hopefully we can both
take advantage
of that a little bit.
Yeah, there's some amazing. If you look what's happening right now, there are some amazing opportunities that are being pushed into the small business world, and the companies that are prepared, have opportunities that, like you were saying, it could be a small company, but if you're aligned with the right large company, you can maybe be successful in a huge contract right now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, with that, Ken, we kind of told you in the beginning, so I didn't necessarily give you a heads up, but if you've got any good jokes, we enjoy the terrible dad joke.
One of the times I was the most proud father was when my daughter came home from a field trip, and she was so proud because she used one of my jokes and got a big laugh on the bus. So they were going to a field trip up in Ramona. They're going by this field, and there's all these cows out there. And she stood up, and she said, "Hey, wait. Hey, look, everybody, those are really amazing cows." And they go, "What?" She goes, "You know how I know they're amazing cows?" And they said, "How?" And she said, "Because they're outstanding in their field." And that's my favorite joke.
No,
you don't like that? I've heard that with the scarecrow. Right?
No, I didn't see it coming. That was great.
But that was good. I'll bet that went over well on the bus, though.
It did. She was a hero, and I was a proud papa because she used my joke.
There you go.
That's great.
So how many times did she have to hear that on road trips?
Probably 20 times.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, Ken, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us. And I thought this was a great conversation. There's a lot to take away there for people. So, and we'll make sure in the comments of the podcast post that we put some of those links for people to get involved and communicate. And yeah, it's great. From Navy stories to business
can I put in one
running.
final plug?
Yeah, please.
So I really believe that a big part of leadership is communication. And there's a great organization that I belong to for 25 years, and that's Toastmasters, where they really focus on the communication part of that equation. And as soon as you're comfortable speaking in front of a group, your career will just blossom. Yeah. And so I really encourage everybody to do that.
Yeah,
get that practice somewhere, and Toastmasters was a great place for me.
Yeah, that's good. So at CSA, we actually started a Toastmasters group within the company. It didn't last super long after we lost 5 or 6 of our team, but for a while there, it was really good. We did about maybe 6 to 8 months worth of
we
monthly.
had like 20 to 30 people there every time. It was really good.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
So, and there's quite a few groups, Toastmaster groups locally here.
Oh, yeah, there's over 100 here in San Diego.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a great plug. Thanks, Ken. I really do appreciate you coming on the show. It's been fun talking. We'll have to do it again, though,
Thanks for
sure.
doing this. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Congrats! You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in. We genuinely hope that you found value in our conversation. If you liked it, please click that like button below and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on our current episodes. And if you didn't like it, you can click the dislike button, but make sure you click it twice. We're eager to hear from you, whether it's your thoughts, questions, topic ideas, or if you're interested in our leadership training and consulting support. Leave us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. We're open to any and all feedback. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to having you back for more insightful leadership discussion. Until next time,